Welcome back to the channel. My name is Adam Smith, and inside this game overview and gameplay video, I'm excited to be tabling The Lord of the Rings Fate of the Fellowship from Z-Man Games. Fate of the Fellowship is a retail release game, and if you want to check out all the components that came inside of the base box, I've got you covered there with a game unboxing video I recently released. I'll put a link to it in the top right hand corner. You can check it out if you want, or continue on with this video, which is going to focus on gameplay. But first, we're going to talk about what the game is all about. I'll go through a couple final steps of setup to show you just how this gets set up to the table, a couple solo-based adjustments, and then we'll get right into gameplay. In Fate of the Fellowship, you're going to step into the world of Middle-earth as members of the Fellowship and the heroes who rise to stand beside them, especially if you're playing solo, as you'll be controlling the Fellowship on your own. Your journey could turn the tide of darkness or doom the realm forever, so every decision carves a new path through the land gripped by shadow, where courage, loyalty, and sacrifice will shape the fate of the free peoples. Will the One Ring be destroyed, or will its bearer fall to despair? Now let's talk about the setup for this one. For solo play, you'll first be following the instructions as normal on pages 4 through 8 of the rulebook. Once you're done, you'll have something set up on the game board here similar to this. There's two major things during that setup process I want to highlight. The first one is the shadow deck right here. The second one is the objectives. These are the two major things that are going to change up how the game is not only played from the beginning, but also what you're aiming to try to accomplish to win the game overall. We'll talk about the objectives in the middle here in just a second. I'll place them off to the side. The shadow deck is what I want to focus on right now. After you set up all of the regular shadow trips in red around Middle-earth, you're going to be going ahead and drawing up 9 random cards from the shadow deck, which will tell you where to place an additional shadow troop for each card. So for example, off the top of the deck, at the very bottom here, you'll see we'll be adding 1 shadow troop to Dunland. So another shadow troop has ended up in Dunland right here, and so we've resolved this card. It's gone into the discard pile. We have 8 more to draw and place. So for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and draw up 8 shadow cards and place a shadow troop at each of them. The major locations where the additional shadow troops came in were Dunland over here, Dol Guldur over here. We had some in Isengard, some way over there to the east, and then some actually down here south. So every time you play the game, these 9 troops are going to end up in different locations, causing differences in terms of your strategy in order to get through Middle-earth. Now let's touch on objectives. You can see the 4 we have here, and we have to complete all 4 of these objectives in order to win. And of course, one of them is in every single game, and that is quite obvious, is to destroy the One Ring. This has a red star in the top left-hand corner to remind you. The other 3 have black stars in the top left to let you know that these are essentially the best 3 to start with when you're playing the game for the very first time. But there's a handful of other objectives to choose from randomly in the future to ensure your games are always going to have different objectives for you to try to accomplish on top of where those extra shadow troops are going to land. This is going to cause differences every single time you play. Now, as the aim of this video is to help you get the game off the shelf and to the table and just show you how this game flows and operates to either help you make an informed decision on it or to actually get the game played, I'm sticking with the objectives as recommended for your very first play. And something I want to note on these cards, and you also will want to as well, is that there are additional setup instructions on some of them. You'll see one right here that tells us to place 2 additional shadow troops in Isengard. So we're going to have to do that, but not only will some objectives tell you to place more shadow troops out in certain locations, and I now need to do this, but also some will actually tell you to place specific meeples of a certain color representing a certain faction within Middle-earth on an objective card. In this case, that's going to be 3 elven troops, which are placed here and are no longer part of the reserves for that faction. The Free People's Troop reserves are found in the top left-hand corner and, of course, split up based on where they're coming from. You got the dwarves, the elves, you have Rohan, and you also have Gondor's troops all up there in appropriate colors. Now, as I mentioned moments ago, on the objective card, we were to place 2 more red shadow troops in Isengard, and you can see there are now 4 there. The final thing I want to mention about the objectives cards is, of course, the one with the red star in the top left-hand corner, destroying the One Ring, is the final objective. In other words, all other objectives have to be completed before you even attempt to destroy the One Ring. But you can choose the order in which you complete the other 3, whichever makes sense based on your strategy. So as you expect in Middle-earth, if you don't destroy the One Ring, that's going to be a loss. Now, the win-loss conditions of the game are all tied together using this hope track, where you're trying to keep your hope as high as humanly possible, as that will benefit you in the end, especially when you're making your final rolls to destroy the One Ring. But if you ever see your hope track drop to 0, that is going to be an automatic loss for the Free Peoples. And you can fully expect this game to try and get that hope track down to 0 as quick as possible. Now, seeing as we're playing this game solo, let's talk about the solo-specific setup rules found on page 22. There are 4 steps. The first one is to place Frodo and Sam's character card by the side of the game board. This is the card they're referring to. For now, I've gone ahead and placed this card off to the side, and we'll certainly talk about it as we get into gameplay. That's all you need to do for that step. The second one is to randomly select 4 other character cards and place them face up, side by side in a row in front of you. Now, for your very first game, it's recommended to take these 4 characters in this order, but you can again change this however you wish and randomly select your characters. Step number 3 is all about the solo marker, which you'll place in the leftmost card of your row of 4 characters that you've selected. Now, the thing you'll notice is that Frodo and Sam is not considered part of this row, which is why they're off to the side. Make sure that Frodo and Sam is not part of this row in any way, shape, or form. This marker is going to move from left to right, turn by turn across this row, and then go back to the beginning and cycle back through, but it will never be on Frodo and Sam's card. The fourth and final step for solo setup is an easy one. Underneath the portrait for each of the characters, just like when you're playing with multiple people around the game table, you will see exactly where each of these characters will be starting with their wooden meeple. So find that matches their portrait and place it. So for instance, Merry and Pippen are at the Shire. Also worth mentioning, Frodo and Sam, of course, have their own meeple, and they're also at the Shire. The rest of the characters have their locations underneath. All the heroes are easy to see from distance in comparison to the troops, which are much smaller. The Nazgul, of course, are all over Middle-earth, and they actually start in positions based on the icons, which are right on the game board themselves. So you'll see for this region, which has a giant black border all the way around, you're going to have 2 Nazgul inside of it, which I do, and the eye is also here, the token for the eye. We'll talk more about how all that works later on. But you'll also see down here in Gondor, for instance, another one. So we've got one placed here. Mordor, of course, has 4, which is the highest count of all of them in one region, and then we've got a couple more up north. Those 4 steps are all you need to do to get set up for solo play, which is absolutely awesome that it doesn't take a lot of time to adjust for that. You can easily switch back and forth within literal seconds. And the other cool thing is that everything for the solo side of the equation is on a single page. So there's just a couple changes to some actions in the game. And of course, one of them is really easy because you're not even using that action anymore. And then in terms of gameplay, there's just a little bit of a tweak in terms of how things flow. But other than that, you're going to feel right at home if you've already played this game with multiple people around the game table. The solo mode is definitely designed to flow within the system that already exists. We are right on the doorstep of diving into gameplay, but one final thing I want to mention, because this icon no longer matters going forward on the game board, so if you see it across any location, just ignore them. They're little meeple icons. You can see them like this. They only matter for setup. So when you're doing your setup, they're reminders of what type of meeple and how many of those troops need to be at that location from the start of the game. Again, not talking about how many come randomly off the shadow cards, and nothing that comes from the objective cards that might throw additional troops into the fray. But essentially, anytime you see these meeple icons anywhere else on the game board going forward, they don't have any meaning. However, there are icons which you're going to find on paths in the game. Paths can be these white lines. They can also be colored arrowed lines. But if you ever see one of these icons on the path, they definitely apply. We'll be talking about these as we go through gameplay. But again, anything meeple icon-wise, like 2 here, 1 here, 2 here, those you can pretend don't exist once the setup is done. Let's now head into my very first round of play, and I've drawn up these 4 cards earlier when we were doing the steps of setup, and I want to show them to you. So I got these 4 cards in hand. We'll talk about the icons in the top left-hand corner in a little bit, what they are and what they do. More importantly, I want to show you the center of the card, which shows a grayscaled out map of the region, but also highlights in color where this card region ties to. So in other words, each of these cards has a particular region that is connected to, and that's actually very important for solo play because there is an action inside of the solo play that requires you, when you do it, to be in the region on the card. And speaking of actions, here are the 2 reference cards that will break down all the different actions you can do as part of solo mode. However, Fellowship is an action you are not going to do. That's the one that's removed, as it doesn't make any sense for solo play, as you'll be controlling all the characters and you'll be sharing tokens and cards across all of them. That's a big difference with solo play. You're not going to manage individual people within the Fellowship with hands of cards and tokens. You just have a pool collectively. So Fellowship action no longer applies, but Travel does. Prepare as you can see here, has a solo game specific rule that says the card must match your region. So that's what I was referring to moments ago. When you choose to prepare, has to match the region that your character is currently in. You can also muster, you can attack, of course, and you can also capture. Now, as we get into a turn, in the top right-hand corner of the game board, there's the order of play. The three major things mentioned: to do 4 actions plus 1 action, draw 2 cards, and then draw shadow cards. The drawing of the shadow cards at the very end is going to be based on the threat rate, which is in the top left-hand corner of the game board. We haven't touched on that yet, but as that increases over time, more cards are coming off the shadow deck, and that's not going to be good news for you. So the first thing to do in the order of play is to do 4 actions plus 1 action. So who does the 4 actions? Well, whoever has the solo marker. So in this case, Merry and Pippen. I can choose strategically to do 4 actions with them first, and then go ahead and do a single action with Frodo and Sam, or I can choose to do a single action with Frodo and Sam, and then the 4 actions with Merry and Pippen. Why is this the case? Because Frodo and Sam are the only ones that get to use that 1 action every single turn. What's going to happen every single turn is the priority character is going to take their 4 actions, or up to their 4 actions. Then Frodo and Sam will either go afterwards or before that. And then this token is going to move to the next individual, who's going to have the chance to do 4 actions, whether it's before or after Frodo and Sam. So Frodo and Sam always have the ability to do something, not a ton, but again, remember, you can use your fellowship characters to bring Frodo and Sam along with you. And you'll see how all this flows and operates as we dive into my very first turn right now. It's Merry and Pippin's turn, and as you can see on their card, a number of things can be done with them. They have the Loyal Friend ability that says as an action once per turn, you can gain a friendship token from the supply. They also have another cool ability that states at any time, in other words, even outside of their turn, if there are fewer than 4 Nazgul in Merry and Pippin's region, you can spend 1 friendship token or card to move up to 2 Nazgul to their region. The friendship icon can show up on cards that are in your hand. I currently have 2 in my hand. One is visible here on the screen, and here is one of the friendship tokens. So if you have a token, you can keep them indefinitely and you can use them as you wish, whereas cards have a restriction in terms of your hand limit. It can never be above 7, and if it is, you have to discard down or use events to get down to that 7 level. Another cool ability for them is that they can give a song. They can give that specifically to Frodo when they're in his location. They can spend 3 friendship to do this. This will increase the hope track and keep you away from despair at the very bottom. Now here's a look at Frodo and Sam's card. Again, they're going to take 1 action every single turn. It can either come before the main character's turn or after. So in this case, we're going to have to decide that based on what they've got going on for their abilities and also our strategy overall. So let's learn more about Frodo and Sam. The first thing it states at the top is when Frodo travels by itself. In other words, for that action, if I choose to use Frodo and Sam to travel, or I take part in a travel action with another character, in other words, another character is taking an action to travel, and Frodo and Sam are coming along for the ride, you have to either spend 1 stealth or you have to roll for search for Frodo's destination he's heading to. Out of the 2 ways to do this, the best way for sure is to spend a stealth icon. You can do this by spending a stealth token or discarding a card from hand that has the stealth icon on it. Otherwise, you're doing the rolling of the search, and in that case, you're going to put yourself at risk to losing hope. Let's check out the abilities for these guys. So we got the support here once per turn when Frodo prepares. So as an action, he can prepare. If he is at a haven in the region named on the card, he also gains 1 friendship token from the supply. We'll talk more about havens in a little bit. Very easy to see them. They essentially have almost like a square pattern around the location. Those are already printed on the game board, but also there are some tokens for havens, whether it be a haven for good or a stronghold for the enemy. Now you can see the Haven tokens right here for the Free Peoples and the Shadow Stronghold tokens right here. You'll also see pre-printed locations where havens and strongholds exist already on the game board. The ones that are obvious, like Helm's Deep, for instance, already has a yellow glow around it, letting you know that that is a haven by default. You don't need to go ahead and place this token on it, but at some point you might lose all of your individual soldiers there, and then you may have some of the Shadow Red troops end up in that location. If they're there by themselves, then that is going to have them take over that particular spot. You're going to go ahead and place a Shadow Stronghold on top of it, and you're also going to lose 3 hope, which is not good. And it's absolutely possible to bring an army back into a Shadow Stronghold and take it down and turn it back into a haven. If you do, you simply just replace that Shadow Stronghold token back to the supply, and you would gain 2 hope back. You don't gain all of what you lost when it originally was taken, but you can sort of mitigate the amount of damage in the hope track that you took. So that's how you use the Shadow Stronghold tokens. The Haven tokens are going to come into play when you decide to take down a Shadow Stronghold that exists on the game board. So for instance, Isengard right here, if we end up taking out all the troops that are there, we get ourselves into that area, and one of the main characters can take a capture action. If we successfully do that capture action by using specific icons in order to pay for the capture, then we can turn that into a Haven. We place this on the game board, and we would go ahead and gain 2 hope. The final thing I want to mention before we head back to Frodo and Sam's card to find out more about their abilities is the Eye of Sauron token, which is currently sitting up here in this region right here. So the token matters for the region that is inside of. It's worth mentioning you want to try as best as possible to not have Frodo and Sam in the same region that the eye is focused on. There are 2 major ways as you take actions through the game that you can do this to get the eye out of that region, but there are other ways that the game is going to shift the eye around, and you'll see this. You won't always be able to fully control it, of course, but there are ways that you can have the gaze move away from a specific reason. One is actually what we talked about earlier in terms of initiating a capture and going after or essentially removing a Shadow Stronghold or potentially placing a new Haven on top of an enemy stronghold. If you do anything in that capacity, you're going to have the eye's attention is going to move to the region where that is occurring. Also, if you ever have any Free People's troops moving into an area with enemy troops and you choose to take the battle action, that's also going to draw the Eye of Sauron, and it's going to move to the region where that battle is occurring. Again, if you do this strategically, you can actually draw the eye away from where Frodo and Sam are, as that is going to be its primary focus, is to get back to Frodo and Sam to be able to hit the hope track and bring you down to despair. Now, continuing on with the card here, Sam's got an aid here. Whenever a search is rolled, you can spend friendship tokens or icons off of cards to ignore the same number of hits to your hope. Those little icons on the black dice we'll talk about later on, but essentially you take 1 hope loss for the one on the left, and the one on the right you would take a hope loss if you're not inside of a Haven. That's why there's a little bit of a squarish looking line around that one. So essentially you can use friendship in order to avoid losing hope. Last but not least, of course, Frodo can put on the ring before a search is rolled. You can ignore all of the shadow troops that are present. If you do, you lose a hope and you shift the eye to Frodo's region. Again, this is maybe something beneficial depending on the situation, but of course, once the gaze is on you, that is going to put you up for future loss of hope if you let it linger there too long. Before I start my actions, there is one thing that I want to highlight, as it can be easily missed amongst the rules inside the rulebook, and that is around that section of Frodo and Sam's card where it says when Frodo travels or takes part in a travel, the current player must either spend 1 stealth icon or roll a search for Frodo's destination. So when you're moving Frodo and Sam, you're moving into a destination, and it's the destination location that you're going to look at to see if there's any shadow troops in that location or any Nazgûl in the region. If there is neither of those things, then no search roll is done, which means no spending of any stealth token is necessary. So as an example of traveling with Frodo, you're going to see here, if traveling, you're going to check Frodo's destination and roll a black die per each Nazgûl in that region and every red shadow troop that's inside the destination location with Frodo to a maximum of 7. So you can see here in this example, Frodo and Sam are here. If they want to travel as an action to this destination location right here, they're going to check to see if there's any red shadow troops in that location. There are not. That's good news. Are there any Nazgûl in the region? No, there are none. So in this situation, no search roll is going to occur. So you would not be spending any stealth icons through cards or tokens in order to make this travel happen. The exact same logic applies when you head back to this location here. If you chose to take a travel action back into here, there's no red shadow troops in this area or location, and there's also no Nazgûl in the region. So again, you could make that move, again, taking a travel action, but wouldn't have to spend a stealth icon. However, if you move Frodo and Sam up to that location with the 5 red shadow troops, you're going to be rolling a black die for each one of them. That's 5 dice right there, so a search roll would be occurring. Again, you can negate the entire search roll and not have to worry about it if you do spend a stealth icon. That's your decision to make. As Frodo and Sam, of course, start in the Shire, I've already got 2 Nazgûl you can see in the region, so if I try to do any kind of traveling with them whatsoever, I'm going to have to roll at least 2 black dice at this point in time, so I'd have to have some stealth to negate that or take that risk of a search roll. I'm going to choose to start things off with Merry and Pippin's for their 4 actions, and then we'll do Frodo and Sam afterwards rather than having them go first. Let's go ahead with Merry and Pippin's action here, which at the very top, Loyal Friend, allows me to gain a friendship token from the supply again across all of the 4 characters in my row that I'm controlling. The tokens are a shared pool as well as the cards. We'll take that token and place it nearby. Merry and Pippin are going to take a travel action by themselves, leaving Frodo and Sam where they're at, heading up north to that dwarven troop in order to grab them and then travel back towards the Shire. The reason I'm doing this is I want to bring a troop back to the Shire that can guard the Haven from the enemy's encroachment on that location. As we know from the books and movies, that is likely going to be something that they're going to be targeting at some point in time, and I don't want to leave it wide open. That costs us 2 actions. We spent one already, so 3 actions already spent for Merry and Pippin. We have 1 more to go, and then 1 more for Frodo and Sam on their own. Now, it's worth mentioning, when you move your major characters through locations, you'll run into Free People's Army individuals like this dwarven unit I just picked up and moved. Characters, when they're moving and taking a travel action, can bring as many other troops of the Free Peoples, whether it's blue, brown, green, or gray, with them as they want to. So essentially, that is the primary way to get those Free People's troops to the positions you need them to be in, is to use your main characters to flow through the location, pick them up, and bring them along with you. And the same logic applies if a main character or hero in the game is moving through a location with another hero and wants to bring them along as part of their travel action. You can absolutely do this. So again, you can really group up quite a party and move along together, but it's also worth mentioning bringing Frodo and Sam along with the large bundle of other heroes while they're trying to accomplish other tasks and objectives may not be the best approach. But there will certainly be times along the journey where you're going to want to have Frodo and Sam sped along by another individual helping them move a little bit quicker. Another action I could do with Merry and Pippin, if I had a region that matched where that character currently resides, is to go ahead and prepare. If you do this, you take a card from your hand that matches the region that you're in with that character, you discard it, and then you gain a token of that icon. You can see here across the 4 cards that I have, not a single one is up there in the top left-hand corner. So there's not a single card here I could use to prepare in order to get a token. The reason you do this is because your maximum hand size is 7, so you can have up to 7 cards in your hand, which are certainly beneficial for their icons. But by going ahead and preparing, you're essentially dwindling down your hand size to ensure you can keep as many icons as possible for future use. And most importantly, avoid going over that 7 card hand limit, which of course would have you discarding down and potentially losing out on icons that you've gained. For my 4th and final action with Merry and Pippin, I'm going to choose to travel, and I'm going to bring Frodo and Sam along with me. This is a little bit risky because there's Nazgul in the area here, and we're going to be getting a black die for each one as part of the search roll that I must do, as I don't have a stealth icon that I can use to avoid this search roll. But I'm going to take a risk here. There are ways to mitigate this roll you'll see in a little bit. I've chosen to move to the destination location of Bree, and when I move there, I look for any red shadow troops. There are none, but there's Nazgul in the region as I mentioned, so we got 2 dice, black dice, going into the tower. Let's find out how this roll goes. Now I'll show you exactly what each of these icons mean, and also how we could potentially mitigate them. Here is a breakdown of the results of a search roll. You'll see the blank is what you're hoping to see because it has absolutely no effect whatsoever. The next one with the tree has a loss of a hope. You don't want to see that because your hope track's going to get impacted, but there's ways to mitigate this. I'll talk about it in a second, but you can kind of see it at the bottom there. And then after that, you'll see another tree icon with almost like a square around it. Again, I talked about this before, but if your character's in a destination when they do their travel action that is a haven, in other words, you can see that it's inside of a haven based on the yellow glow around the location, or in one that's been converted to a haven using one of the white tokens over here, then when you roll that particular icon, you do not lose a hope when you're inside the haven. If you're outside the haven, which my Frodo character currently is, then you would actually lose a hope if you roll that icon. The bottom one here is if Nazgul are present, you recall one back to Mordor. So one actually moves from the region you're in back to Mordor. So for me, this one's not too bad right now. Having a Nazgul leave the region's actually a pretty good thing. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this. Now this one of losing a hope I'm not too fond of, but I do have one ring or resistance icon. That's what the ring icon means, is resistance. I can go ahead and use this ring, discarding this card into the discard pile in the bottom right-hand corner of the game board in order to re-roll this die. Let's roll the die through the tower and see what we get as a result. You won't hear me complaining about a blank result on these dice. They are nasty. We're going to go ahead and now recall one of the Nazgul back to Mordor. The skies appear a little bit clearer. There's a little less to worry about on search rolls, and we made some progress to Bree. Merry and Pippin's 4 actions are spent. We now have Frodo and Sam with a single action, and I'm very tempted to do another travel action with them, even though I don't have any more resistance icons or ring icons in order to mitigate the dice rolls from those black dice. The kicker is I only have one Nazgul there, so it's not as bad as it was before, but I do have the chance I could lose some hope. But I'm going to take that risk, and we're going to travel to where Gandalf is. Now remember, there is one ability that Sam has as part of Frodo and Sam that states whenever a search roll is rolled, you can spend your friendship icons to ignore the same number of loss of hope icons on the black dice or the ones that lose hope when you're in a haven. So I have a way to actually mitigate them through the ability on Frodo and Sam's card. By using the friendship icons in that way to mitigate these dice rolls does prevent you from using them in another capacity. We'll talk more about how you can use those icons in different ways as we keep going. So let's go ahead with that die roll here and see if we even need it in the first place. We don't. We got another blank. I am going to continue to push here as things are looking pretty good. That's going to do it for all the actions for this turn. So we're done the very first step for the order of play, which is to do actions. We're now going to draw 2 cards. Now, I already had the cards on the left. We gained the 2 on the right, so I got a stealth icon as well as a valor icon. You probably noticed, but on one of the 2 cards that I picked up, the region that we're currently in is highlighted, which means that the next time we have a character take their turn and they have an action to spend to do a prepare, we can go ahead and discard this card from our hand to get that token right here. And again, that's going to ensure that we keep our hand limit at 7 or lower. We're fine as long as we're in that realm. If we go above, the second we do, typically when drawing 2 cards as we did just now, then at that point you can either go ahead and use the event cards you might have in your hand if you have any. We haven't gotten any yet. Or you just simply have to start discarding cards and not getting anything for them, and nobody wants to do that. We now move to the third and final part of the turn, which is known as drawing the shadow cards. You're going to draw this based on the threat rate, which is currently 2 way up in the top left-hand corner. I'll show you a shot of this in just a moment. But first, we draw off the top and we place it into the resolve area right here. And then you go ahead and resolve the card. Once it's resolved, you move it to the discard area. Now, what's really important about this resolve is when you go ahead and flip the card over face up, you're going to look at the back of the card on the top of the deck, and you're going to see whether it shows a red flag across the top or whether down here you see a banner with red inside of it. And that's going to tell you whether to resolve this card's top section or bottom section. So in this case, you got the red flag, so it wants us to do the top section of the card. So everything from Dunlin down is not going to matter. The only thing we're doing here is the troops are on the move. The top portion of the shadow card is called an advancement, and this is going to have us advancing from Dunlin to Rivendell. So you're going to take a look at Rivendell, where it's located way up there up north, and you're going to look for the green arrow, as it shows a green arrow right on the card, so you know exactly which arrow to follow. And you're going to look at it, and then you're going to follow it backwards. Even though the arrow is pointing at Rivendell, you're going to find it where Rivendell is as the final location, and you're going to go backwards from it along the green arrow all the way until you get back to Dunlin. And every single destination that you hit, if you find red shadow troops, when you eventually do, you're going to move those shadow troops along the path per the arrow that is green. So these individuals are going to march up to this area as they're trying to advance towards Rivendell. So essentially, as you're moving backwards from Rivendell, anytime you hit red shadow troops, you're going to move them forward on the arrow, but you're not going to resolve any battles right away. You'll continue to go all the way back to the original location. And once you're done moving everybody, then you're going to take a look to see if there's any red shadow troops in the same location as any free people's armies of any faction color. If there is, and there isn't in this example, but if there is, you're going to do a battle roll for that. We'll talk about it when it happens in the future. Now, this is a great time to talk about all the lines on the game board and how they matter to the Fellowship versus the Shadow Armies or Shadow Troops in red. So first off, from the Fellowship's perspective, as you saw me do, I moved from the Shire here along this purple arrow right here, which actually faces back toward the Shire. I moved down to Bree, and then I moved back down this green arrow to here. And you might be thinking, well, can you do that? Well, yes, you can. From the Fellowship's perspective, any colored arrowed line anywhere on the game board and any solid white line is traversable across, no issues whatsoever. That also includes the Free People's armies, can also make use of all of those connected paths. Now, from the Shadow Troop side of the equation, they will never use any white solid lines ever. They're always going to use colored lines, as denoted even on the shadow cards themselves, green in this case for this example. So as I went ahead and I moved the troops along the green arrowed lines, we again follow the arrows as to where we're supposed to move those troops when we actually move through the path. And then you can also remember that this colored line and all colored lines on the map are known as battle lines, and that will help you to remind yourself to initiate any battles that might happen when Free People's armies and Shadow armies are in the same space during the resolving of the advancement shadow card. That's going to resolve one shadow card, and we resolve another one. As you can see, the threat rate currently starts at 2. It will eventually increment up, and you'll be resolving even more shadow cards as the game progresses. You'll eventually get, at worst, to 5. We now resolve the second card off the top, and again, reference what's going on the back side of this card, and at the very top, we have the banner in red, so it's telling us to go ahead and resolve again the top section of this card. So again, we're going to go to the Woodland Realm and work backwards. So we're going to find the Woodland Realm, which is up here where Legolas currently is. We're going to find the pink line that points to it, and we're going to work our way backwards. And every time we find another location, we're going to see if there's any red shadow troops that are there. If there is, oh, there's some right here. They're going to traverse up the line as it points where they should go next. With the Shadow Troops moved, there's no battles that need to be resolved. There's no free peoples in the same space as the Shadow Troops, so we resolve that Shadow card, and that's it. Again, when each of the Shadow cards are resolved, they're immediately put in the discard pile, so at this point there should be nothing here in the resolve area. And we now go ahead and we take the solo marker, we're going to move it from where it was with Merry and Pippen to our next character. The next character, Eowyn, here has two abilities. One states when she musters in a Rohan location, you do not need to spend any friendship. Now, her second ability is very strategic, situational, but absolutely can be beneficial for removing Nazgul from the game, which is extremely important because she's the only character who can actually do this. And you might not be able to do it a lot, but if you can even pull it off a few times, it'll be beneficial for you towards the end game. So when a battle is rolled, if she's in the same space, you get to remove a Nazgul from her region, from the game, for each of the results in the die that land with the Nazgul symbol and the two meeples that are white at the bottom. Now, normally when that result is rolled, if there's a Nazgul in the region, they're going to go ahead and pick off two of the Free People's Army individuals. But instead, if she is present, two individuals don't get picked off. She actually takes down a Nazgul instead. Very thematic. Now, before I go ahead with her turn, or potentially use Frodo and Sam first before taking her 4 actions, I want to talk about the objective cards that I have and what I'm aiming to try and accomplish in the near term. The short-term goals that I'm going after here are this one here and this one here. Now this, the Blessing of the Elves, is very important. We have to get 2 individual characters to Rivendell, which I think I can accomplish with Gandalf and Legolas. If I can get them both into Rivendell together, and as it states here, if you go ahead and spend 3 friendship, then you're going to complete this objective. You're also going to release these elves into the pool of Free People's troops that you can then actually recruit. And we need these, as you can see, an objective down here is to challenge Sauron. And when we want to do this, we're going to need to have the elves in order to pull that off, along with other individuals. And we have to get all of these individuals into one location just outside of Mordor. That's something to think about for later on in the game. But we want to kind of free up our pool of elves. Right now, we only currently have 2 available, and I would like to bring a little bit more than that into the fray. So this is probably the one I'll be focusing on first. I'll likely then head here for the second one, where we have to head there and actually convert Isengard into a haven, and then we'll go ahead and challenge Sauron down here, and hopefully if we have all 3 of those completed in that order, at least that's the hypothetical order I'm hoping I can complete them in, 1, 2, 3, then we can try for destroying the One Ring. Just want to show you a clear shot of the bottom 2. Again, I'm keeping this in mind. I want to make sure that eventually I'm going to have these Free People's Army troops all in a pile at this location just outside of Mordor. That's something I got to keep in the back of my mind as I'm trying to complete the initial ones I'm trying to go after. Now, to complete the objective around challenging Sauron, I'm going to have those troops I just talked about across the different Free People's armies all up in this location right here. Now, Eowyn really wants to recruit some troops to her cause, but she wants to make sure that Helm's Deep is well protected. We can see here we just have 1 unit in there, and that's probably not enough. So we're going to take the first action to bring her to Helm's Deep, and then we're going to do some recruitment, as her ability says we don't have to spend friendship icons at all to do this, which is a nice benefit. She's going to take the muster action 3 times. In order to recruit 3 troops, they have to match the actual symbol that's inside the location that you're mustering in, and you can only muster at locations that have a symbol for the faction of troops that you're trying to go after. Again, if you want to know which icons make sense for which troop type, you'll see that in the top left-hand corner where the reserves are. So I could actually recruit in any of these 4 locations within the region, but I'm choosing Helm's Deep as it's a good place. It has the haven, and again, remember on the dice rolls, that's going to come in beneficial in potential future battles as well. Now for Frodo and Sam, they have an opportunity to travel right now and not have to worry at all about a search roll, because they can move into a location that doesn't have any shadow troops and also has no Nazgul. So we're going to go ahead right now and move them in. Now, strategy-wise, I'm going to choose to keep Merry and Pippin back in the other region because, again, they have that ability that allows them to distract and to pull the eye back away from where Frodo and Sam are currently going. So I'm going to try to split the party up at this point. I'm likely going to have Gandalf in the future head up to Rivendell. That's why I didn't have him accompany Frodo and Sam to this next location. He also has an ability, Gandalf does, which you'll see when his turn comes up later on, that when he's traveling alone, he can move up to 2 spaces. So he's going to be able to get up to Rivendell in just 1 travel action by himself. With actions resolved, the next 2 cards drawn up were these 2 right here, and you can see 5 cards that I already had. Now we'll draw up 2 shadow cards and see which side we're resolving. We can see a banner here in red, so we're resolving the bottom portion of the card. We're ignoring the top section, and you'll see here we're going to be placing 1 red shadow troop in Umbar. So that troop is now added to this location in the south, and you'll also see now we're deploying 3 Nazgul from Mordor to the Eye, which is actually a good thing that we are no longer in that location, at least in terms of Frodo and Sam. So 3 Nazgul are coming out of Mordor, and they're going to head up to the top left region where the Shire is. Now there's 2 other rules on the card that mention if and when Mordor is empty, deploy from the largest groups one at a time. So basically what this means is if you only had 2 Nazgul inside of Mordor, you move those 2 to where it tells you to, which is the Eye token location. You don't have the 3rd one, so you start looking at all the other regions where Nazguls exist, and you pull one from the one with the largest grouping of them. If they're all exactly the same, then the players get to decide, or in my case, as a solo player, I get to decide. Now, the other rule here says if the Eye is in Mordor, you recall 3 Nazgul back to Mordor. So in other words, if the focus is in Mordor, because let's say hypothetically Frodo's made it all the way to there and this card comes up and all the Nazgul are out here already and there's none in Mordor and the Eye is there, they're all coming back. Well, at least 3 of them are anyway, and that's not good news. As of right now, I'm really happy that Frodo and Sam are in a completely different region. The next shadow card is this one right here, and it's the banner at the bottom, so we're resolving this here. So we're going to have 1 additional shadow troop in that location, and then 3 Nazgul are coming from Mordor to the Eye again. The additional shadow troop has been placed, and now the 2 that are in Mordor are going to head out towards the Shire. We need to take a 3rd one from the rest of the regions in play. Sauron's attention on the Shire is insane right now. This is actually pretty crazy how many Nazgul have ended up in that area. We have 1 more that needs to move there right now, and it's based on the largest groupings in regions elsewhere, but there's only 1 in each of these regions, so we get to select which one we move, and this can be a strategic benefit for me. The Nazgul I chose came from the region where Rivendell resides, moving it into here. So now we have some passageway without Nazguls involved. We still have a couple out there on the game board. And of course, the game will continue to move these around. We're going to have to keep an eye on them. The skies around the Shire have gotten very dark very quickly. And it's now time to move the solo marker onto our next character. Now Legolas has some pretty cool abilities here. The top one, walking silently as an elf would do. In action, once per turn, gain a stealth token from the supply. It can be very beneficial to get those. Sure shot here. At any time, it's not an action used on any player's turn. You spend 1 of those stealth actions, the icons, either to remove 1 of the shadow troops from Legolas's location or an adjacent location, or to move a Nazgul from his region to Mordor. So you can kind of control things that way, which is nice. Keen Sight at the bottom says once per turn. When Legolas prepares, look at the top card of the shadow deck. Now Legolas wants to move from the Woodland Realm to Rivendell. In order to do this, I'm going to use the Walk Silently ability. I'm going to gain a stealth token. I'll take this right now for 1 action. So I'm going to go ahead and add this. We'll be using this almost right away. Then he's going to head south. Then he's going to head west. Then he's going to go through the mountains, and you'll see the icon there for stealth icon. You have to spend either a card or a token. I'll go ahead and spend the token that I just gained, and that'll allow me to get all the way to Rivendell. Another reminder that all the characters of the Fellowship can move around the game board without worrying about shadow troops or Nazgul except for Frodo and Sam. So Legolas can basically move through these locations without any issues whatsoever. Now I'm going to make a quick adjustment here. I said moments ago I was going to spend my stealth token, but instead of spending the token, which I can keep off to the side and doesn't hit my 7-card limit, instead I'm going to get rid of the card that has a stealth on it that was from my hand. So we're going to go ahead and discard this. As Frodo and Sam are in a region that is currently free of the Eye as well as Nazgul, I'm going to keep them exactly where they are. Instead, I'm going to go ahead with a prepare action. So we're going to go ahead and discard this card because they're in this region and gain this token right here. And this works out well for the actions, as now I have 5 cards in hand, a few tokens, and we can go into drawing 2 cards and not have to worry about a limit. I drew up a new friendship card and a resistance card. Off the top of the shadow deck, we draw 2 cards, starting with the first one, and then looking at the back of the card, we have a banner here, so that's going to be this top section. It's an advancement. This is a very long battle line. It goes from here in Mordor all the way up to this location here. Again, we're looking at the blue battle lines. We're starting here, working our way backwards, looking for any shadow troops along the way we need to move. Dol Guldur here is going to move up 1. We'll continue down the path. This is a really long one. Once you get to here, it appears there's only 1 path that leads the right way, going here, then to here. So this one is going to traverse to here, and then continuing along the path to the back, these ones will move forward. So we had 3 armies of shadow troops moving. As no battles exist, that's going to resolve that shadow card on to the next one. What a wild combination of cards back to back. We got another one, advancement happening on the exact same path. So again, we'll find our final destination here, working backwards along the blue line, looking for any of the shadow troops to move. These ones are headed up. They're getting closer and closer to our havens, which is not good. Continuing along the path. Do we have any more? Yes, we certainly do. These guys will be coming out here, and then we continue along, and these guys will be headed here. It appears to me that the Woodland Realm Haven up there is going to need some backup real soon. So as of right now, we're going to move the solo marker over to Gandalf, and he's going to begin his turn. Gandalf's first action is going to be to prepare. As he's sitting in this region currently, he can take both of these cards for 2 actions and prepare them to take tokens for each of them. So another Friendship and another Valor, which is pretty good. He's inside the region, as you can see, and we don't want to keep him there forever. I want to get him on the move. Again, if he moves by himself, he can move 2 locations at 1 travel action. So he makes it all the way up to Rivendell, and the great news about that is as a final action, his 4th one, we can actually complete our first objective. As you can see right here, complete if, as an action, a character in Rivendell spends 3 friendship while at least 1 other character is present. Legolas is there. We're going to spend these 3 cards from our hand. Then we're able to complete this. We now can place the troops that are on this card into the supply area. I'll show you where that is in a second, the top left-hand corner of the game board. Each player with at least 1 character in Rivendell is going to gain 1 friendship token. Now, I have 2 characters there. I'm playing solo. My understanding of this is that I would receive just 1 token in this case, but I also gain a hope, which is awesome. The cards I used to pay for this are in the discard pile. Now the objective is considered complete, and we'll go through all the completed actions. I'll show you in just a moment, but you flip this over when you complete it. So now for the elves, we have 3 additional reserves going in. So instead of just a 2 to work with, we have more to pull, which is going to be good because we're going to need some as we go towards challenging Sauron in the future. We need at least 2 elves with us, and also what's going on in the Woodland Realm could use some backup. We also gain that friendship token, so I have a total of 3 of those down here, a stealth token and 2 valor with 2 cards left in hand. That's great because I was able to deplete my hand quite a bit by spending those, which is nice. Also, we gain a hope, as I mentioned, and as long as you have the room to take it, you can take it. And of course, pushing up the higher, the better. So the first objective I need to do is done. The second one here tells us that it's complete if both of the following are true. First, Isengard has to be a haven, so we have to clear it of all the shadow troops, and we have to convert it or capture it to make it a haven. And on top of it, Rohan can have a single shadow troop in the entire region as well. So far so good on the shadow troops in terms of this region here, but we need to clear this out and convert it to a haven. That's going to take some effort. Now, it's worth mentioning when you want to capture something like an enemy stronghold and convert it into a haven, first, obviously the units can't exist there, but once you use the capture action, you have to have at least 3 valor to spend in order to capture something. And luckily, I have 1 valor card and 2 valor tokens. So I have what I need there. I just need to clear this out. Now, I still have an action to spend with Frodo and Sam, but I'm going to choose to not use it at all. You don't have to take the action, and I don't want to strategically for one major reason. I'm trying to actually use Frodo and Sam as bait in this case for Nazgul in the future. If they move into this location, I can then skirt out of it easily with a general travel action. Now, if I go ahead right now and use my action to get into here, I'm making progress towards Mordor, but I have to backtrack in order to avoid Nazgul or try to get out of the eye's reach. So again, you're not trying to necessarily speed run Frodo and Sam to Mordor, because if you get them to the doorstep, you're going to have to deal with a lot of attention on you, and that's going to drain your hope over time. It's better to play a little bit of cat and mouse with the Nazgul and the other enemies and other effects the game is going to throw at you. My actions for Gandalf are now done, including Frodo and Sam, so I've drawn up 2 cards, Gondor and Dale I got, so I have a new resistance card as well as a new stealth card. Let's find out what the Shadow deck has for us, drawing 2 cards per the threat rate, and we're looking at the bottom this time, so we're going to get a reinforcement for a Shadow troop in Near Harad, and then down below, the eye is going to be shifting to Frodo's region. See? Told you. So the new troop will be reinforced here at this location in the south, and the eye is now going to shift its attention to where Frodo is in terms of its region, so it's going to be pointed right at there. Now it states here, if it was already there, you'd roll a search. So again, this goes back to the fact you don't want to have Frodo and Sam in the same area as the eye token, because if you get something like that, you'll be rolling a search, and that's not going to be good. We're not out of the woods yet because we're going to pull 1 more shadow card, and I really hope that the eye moving to here is not going to somehow tie into this next card. Let's see how it goes, and it is going to be the bottom portion, so that's probably not good. It's going to be a +1 troop at Nirn, and then below it says deploy 3 Nazgul from Mordor to the eye. The additional troop shows up in the back portion of Mordor right here, and now we're going to shift some Nazgul. Now, there's none in Mordor right now, so it states below here, it might be tough to see, but I'll read it. It says, if and when Mordor is empty, which it is, deploy from the largest groups one at a time. The largest group is obviously where they're all hoarding up here near the Shire, so they're going to come towards 3 of them straight down to where Frodo is. Just like that, the enemy is on us, and you can see as the threat rate starts to go up and you're drawing more cards than just 2 every single time, when you start drawing 3 and 4, the combinations of the eye moving, the Nazgul moving, and then the potential for search rolls to happen, and of course, how many Nazgul are in the same location as Frodo and Sam are going to increase how many black dice are rolled. That is going to have a major impact on your hope as the threat rate continues to rise. You'll see how that rises as we continue through gameplay. We now begin the next turn. We're going to move the solo marker from Gandalf here all the way to Merry and Pippin. Merry and Pippin are going to hold off on their 4 actions and let Frodo and Sam take their action to travel out of the region with the eye token as well as an Nazgul there. They want to get out of that region as fast as possible. We're going to move to this destination location right here, which has no Nazgul in the region and no shadow troops here, so we can do this without any stealth icon. Now it's time for Merry and Pippin's 4 actions. The one that doesn't cost an action, Distract, is really beneficial strategically because you can drag Nazgul into their region so long as there's fewer than 4 Nazgul in the region already. Right now I can't make use of that, but it's something I can use in order to try to keep them away from Frodo and Sam. So keeping myself maybe a region or 2 away from Frodo and Sam is beneficial, but I also have the ability to sing, and if I do that in the same space as Frodo, I can uptick our hope if we get into a dire situation. But for now, seeing as both of those aren't really a focus, I could just go ahead and gain a friendship token for 1 action, which is probably what I'll do to add to my supply. So I currently have 4 of those now, which is pretty awesome. And then maybe what we'll do is we'll put ourselves positionally in a space where there's a haven that has low defenses for the free peoples. Let's do 3 travel actions with Merry and Pippin for the rest of their actions. So we're going to go ahead and move from here to this location right here. And it might be tough to tell, so I'll move the Nazgul here, but there is a cost to traverse here through to Moria. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to spend 1 friendship token or card. So I'll do that. That'll get us into Moria. So that's going to be 1, 2, and then we'll get to the fields over here for 3. I spent a friendship token, so I have 3 friendship tokens left, 1 stealth token left, 2 valor tokens, and then I've got 4 cards in hand still. Now I've gone ahead and drawn up my 2 cards, and I got 2 good ones. I got a stealth icon, which is awesome, but I also have my first event. It says to play at any time. It's not considered an action. You can remove up to 2 shadow troops from any one location. This can be really helpful. That event card should come in really handy with what's going on up there at Rivendell as well as the Woodland Realm, because there are enemy forces encroaching on both of those havens. So we got to keep that eye on that and maybe use that card to kind of dwindle their forces. But we're going into the shadow card resolve. So let's see the first one. It's going to be the top section. So we're doing an advancement. Now this advancement is going from here all the way to Helm's Deep. So from Helm's Deep, working backwards with the purple arrow, we're going to continue until we see any of the shadow troops along the path. And there currently weren't any until we got to the final location. We'll go ahead and move these guys up following the purple arrow, and that's going to do it. There's no battles to resolve. The next shadow card is going to be following the bottom portion of the card, so +1 shadow troop in Moria, and we're going to be deploying Nazgul from Mordor to the Eye. So 1 additional shadow troop is going to be added to Moria, which is right here. It has 2. We're going to add another one that'll make it 3. And then we're going to go ahead and be moving 3 Nazgul from Mordor into the space with the Eye token. But we're not counting this region, as this is where they'll be moving into. So the only other ones that are currently able to be pulled from right now, because Mordor is empty, is going to be this large amount of them here, 1 here and 1 here. So we go to the largest grouping of them first, and we take 1 at a time until things are evened out. And then, of course, we have a choice at that point. But the 3 will be able to easily come from this area, moving into here for a total of 6, and there'll be 1 left here, here, and here. The Nazgul are picking up on the fact we're no longer in the Shire as they head closer to where Frodo and Sam currently are. Into the next turn we go, so we'll move the solo marker and continue on. Now, as I talked about before, we really want to try and take Isengard and turn it into a haven, and I think Eowyn is going to be a perfect individual to recruit and muster more, as she does not have to spend fellowship tokens for each recruitment. There's 2 more left up in the pool there, so we can recruit both of them and bring them here. Now, I've actually changed my mind. I'm going to only muster 1 time because I have a lot more I want to try and accomplish this turn. So I've gone ahead and added another troop into this location right here. It does not cost me a friendship icon in any way, shape, or form, which is awesome. And at this point, we're going to take all of these free peoples except for 1, and we're going to travel into this location here. So that so far is 2 actions spent. A 3rd action is going to be to bring the battle to Isengard. Now, it's worth noting I kept Frodo and Sam where they were. I didn't want to bring them along for this battle. So at this point, we have Éowyn here leading a group of individuals up against Isengard, and we're going to have a battle. Now, a battle doesn't automatically commence when you move your Free People's armies into a space with shadow troops. You still have to do the attack action to trigger it. So now I'm going to do exactly that. The fourth action I have, I'm going to use to do an attack, and that's why I didn't do the additional muster, because I wouldn't have been able to actually pull off an attack during this turn. So right now, if the location has Free People's armies in it, as well as Shadow Army individuals in it, we shift the eye to this region. And now we're going to roll for a battle. On the back side of the action reference cards, you're going to find a full breakdown of how to roll for a battle. We see the roll for search. We've done this before. We'll put this off to the side for now. Rolling for a battle is what's going on. There's two different columns to go down. So you either go down this path or you'll go down this path. And you're on this side of the equation right now because the characters are initiating the battle. So you're following the left-hand side. If it's part of the shadow card resolve, in other words, you're moving the battle line, the armies across the battle line as you saw earlier, and they happen to meet up with a Free People's army, then that's going to be this right side of the equation. So here, where the characters initiate things, it's going to be up to 1 white dice in the roll to a maximum of 3 for each Free People's troop you have. So I'm going in with 4 troops. I could roll up to a maximum of 3 white dice. So what can these dice do? Well, let's take a look at the results. You can see right here, if you get a filled in meeple in red, you remove 1 of the shadow troops, which is good for you. If you get this one, it's a 1 for 1, so it's good and bad. You're thinning them out, but you're also thinning yourself out. This one here, you would remove 1 of the Free People's troops, but you can ignore it if you're inside of a haven. And of course, that has to be, well, in this case, it won't apply because we are attacking a shadow stronghold, so we're not going to be able to take advantage of that. That would be a loss for us. And this bottom one here says if a Nazgul is present, it's going to actually pick off 2 of the Free People's armies, and there is 1 present, so that presents a risk on that front as well. Now our saving grace yet again is down below here. It says we can spend resistance or rings to reroll 1 of the white die each. So I have 2 of those in my hand right now. So if we get some really poor rolls off these dice, I can reroll hopefully my way to some success. Now, don't forget to check your character's abilities because you might have something that can actually turn the tide of battle in your favor. So you can see here for Éowyn, she has no living man MI. It says if she is present when a battle is rolled, remove 1 Nazgul in her region from the game for each one of the Nazgul results rolled. You do not lose 2 friendly troops either, which is huge. So that makes that really negative result at the very bottom a positive one. It no longer would harm our armies, and we can actually take down a Nazgul and get rid of it out of the game. Huge. At the very top here, this is a positive for us. This is more of a 50-50 split between both sides. And then you've got this here, basically a negative for both sides because you're thinning things out and quickening the battle resolve. But this one here is the only real nasty one to look out for because we'll just lose a Free People's troop in that case. But I do have 2 rerolls thanks to 2 cards in hand that I can use for resistance if things go south on these dice. So let's go ahead with the roll and see how it goes. Cross your fingers and hope that we land that Nazgul result so we can take one out of the game. That would be absolutely awesome. Let's see how it goes. We got ourselves an interesting, actually that's not bad. So basically that would be a loss of 2 units from the enemy side of the equation and 1 from ours. But we could use a reroll right now, which I will do because this is actually a pretty good roll. And we'll reroll this one down here. So I discarded that resistance card. Let's make the reroll and hope we see the Nazgul result because that would be epic. No, it's a 1 for 1. Now, do we want to stay with this or do we want to try and reroll one more time? I'm going to choose not to reroll it as much as I'm tempted to do so to take down a Nazgul. There's only that 1 in 6 chance it's going to happen. I don't think it's worth throwing those cards in order to try to get it. 3 enemies being taken out versus our 1 is pretty solid. A successful battle thins out the hordes. Now, I do technically have an event card in hand that allows me to remove up to 2 shadow troops from any location, so I could just wipe this one completely. Tempted to do it, but it wouldn't be making full use of the card, so I think I'll hold off. I'm going to use Orc Infighting right now at a different location because I think they're on the cusp of coming after a haven. As you can see over here in Holland, there is 5 shadow troops on the doorstep of Rivendell, and I do not like that. We're going to thin that down to 3. That'll ensure that if we muster there at Rivendell a couple times, we should be a-okay to defend that area without having to worry about those armies for a little bit. The event card was not considered an action, so even though I didn't have an action to spend, I'm able to play this card right now. Now at this point, while things are safe, I'm going to choose to use my 1 action with Frodo and Sam to move, and because I'm moving into a location that doesn't have any shadow troops or any Nazgul in the region, I can do this without spending a stealth icon, which is awesome. It also gets me into the Helm's Deep location, which is a haven, and that certainly is going to be a benefit for me. The Haven benefit comes from preparing with Frodo. If he is at a haven in a region named on a card, he also gains 1 friendship token from the supply. With the actions complete, we now drop 2 cards, and you'll see one of the 2 cards I got. These are the 2 I just received. One of them is called Skies Darken. There are 4 of these inside, staged within this deck off to the right, and when they show up, you immediately resolve them. The first thing that's going to happen is the shadow is going to grow, so we're going to increase the threat by 1, moving it to the next position, which is still 2 for shadow cards resolved on a given turn, but getting close to 3. The second is called I See You. If the eye token is in Frodo's region, you lose 2 hope. Otherwise, you just move the eye to that region. So thankfully, based on our strategy, we avoided losing some hope, but now the eye is clearly fixed on us. The next step is called Under the Cover of Darkness. 3 shadow troops are being deployed at Mount Doom. And last but not least, the danger intensifies. We shuffle the shadow discard pile and place it on top of the shadow deck. So we simply take all the cards that are sitting in the discard right now, shuffle them all up, and place them right on top. There was 2 cards at the very beginning of the game that were put in the discard from the start, so we would never have run into them. They're now being shuffled into the equation in the top section of the deck. The discard pile of shadow cards was fully shuffled and then placed on top of the existing deck right here. So we're all set, and the Skies Darken has been resolved. We now move to drawing the shadow cards, and we're drawing 2 still, thanks to the threat rate, which has not ticked up to 3 yet, and I'm not looking forward to that. Let's go ahead and pull the top card off, and we have this one here based on the banner. It'll be the top section, so we have an advancement. Now, for a second, I got extremely worried that we were going to see a light blue arrow, but this card has a light orange arrow, thank goodness, so that actually keeps the Woodland Realms safe for a little bit longer, and it's definitely on my list to get one of those characters over to the Woodland Realm and try to muster to build up some troops there, but also we have to be concerned about the Dwarven area over here. This also has a haven which can be attacked and taken out by the enemy forces, and you lose 3 hope every single time that happens, which can really start to barrel roll your hope down to despair. So again, looking at the 2 locations in question here and the final one here, following the orange arrow, we go back, we go back, we go back. These individuals are going to be marching over here. Thank goodness they're not going to the Woodland Realm in this time. This continues on down. These 4 will move to here, moving on down. This one will come up here, and that's going to do it. There's no battles. That's going to do it for the first shadow card. The second one coming off the deck, and we're going to be looking at the top section of the card. Another advancement, this all heading towards Helm's Deep. Umbar is down here, and Helm's Deep is right here. We're following the orange arrow backwards from Helm's Deep, so we're going to follow it through to here, then around over to here, then down to here, then down to here, and it continues all the way through to here. These individuals will move up here. There will be a battle here, and then we go down to Umbar, and these 3 will move up. So we do have a battle to resolve. Rolling a battle that the shadow initiates on the right-hand side, 1 white die per each of the shadow troops. So in this case, it's going to be 3, which is unfortunate. So it's up to a maximum of 3 always. And then we're going to roll to see how things go. This should be interesting. Now, before we go ahead with that roll, I do want to mention something that I missed out on, and I'm going to do it retroactively. It has no gameplay impact besides cleaning up one of the shadow troops left behind. The last time I rolled for a battle with Eowyn at Isengard, we had 1 shadow troop remaining, and as you can see, if a character is present, not only can I spend rings to reroll dice, but I can also spend valor, whether it's tokens or cards, in order to remove 1 shadow troop each. And I do have 2 of those valor tokens and 1 valor card, so I'm going to remove a card, and I had this card at that time to get rid of that final troop. I'm not going to be able to capture it, as that will actually be another action to do so to complete the objective I need to do, but I can at least get rid of the troop there. So here's the card I'm discarding for Valor, and the troop in that location no longer exists. Now it is ripe for capturing in the future. Now getting back to the Shadow Troop battle, which was initiated based on the battle line resolve. We've got 3 Shadow Troops, so 3 white dice coming into the fray against the single Gondor unit, and I cannot take advantage of anything around this section of the card in terms of spending resistance icons to reroll white dice, or spending Valor to remove Shadow Troops because there's no characters present. So let's go ahead and grab the 3 dice, roll them through the tower, and see how this battle resolves. Now we'll resolve the battle based on the dice results for a battle, and it's going to have us remove 1 of each, which means 1 Shadow Troop is gone and 1 Gondor unit is gone, and as soon as you do that, there are no more Free People's Army in that location. So at this point, that has been taken, but it's not a haven, so there's no loss of any hope. Shadow Troops when taken out always go back to their supply, and of course the Free People's troops go back to their supply areas as well. And it's now time for the next character in our fellowship to activate. Now Legolas is up there in the north at the Rivendell location, and he's looking off to the east as there's a couple of different havens that could be overtaken by shadow troops in the near future, and he wants to try and stop that, but he's also looking at a troop of 3 here, which is just on the doorstep of Rivendell. Now he can go ahead as an action and gain a stealth token, so he's going to go ahead and do this right now for 1 action. Actually, I'm going to take that back. I'm not going to take that additional token for stealth this time. Instead, I'm going to spend the one that I already have in order to use his ability. This does not cost an action. It's called Sure Shot. As it states around the card, I'm going to discard the token I already had before the turn even began. I'm not taking that free one up top here. So I'm spending one I already had to remove 1 shadow troop from Legolas's location or an adjacent location, or I can move Nazgul from the region to Mordor. I'm going to choose to take out one of the shadow troops. I'm going to choose to make this Holland area here a little bit less daunting, down to just 2 shadow troops, and hopefully the one that's there at Rivendell can hold the fort. Next, I'm going to use 2 of these friendship tokens in order to recruit 2 elves at the Rivendell location. So the Sure Shot was a free action. The 2 musters cost 2 actions. I still have 2 to spend, and I'm kind of debating what to do next. I think I might actually use my final friendship token to muster 1 more time. We'll bring 1 more elf into this area here, and then I think I might actually stick it out there. I was planning on moving him out, but I might use Gandalf instead because he can move quicker by himself. So basically at this point, I'm going to go ahead and do what I said I wasn't going to do earlier, but the 4th action is going to be to take the extra stealth token. So that's going to do it. I have 2 Valor tokens left. I have the Stealth token that I said I wasn't going to take initially, but at the very end of my turn, the 4th action, I decided to take it. And then I've got these in my hand right now. And I think that's going to be it. So with 4 cards, we'll go ahead and draw 2 up and see what we get. First one off is another Stealth. That's nice. Love seeing those. And the second we got, oh, that's good for recruitment. All right, let's resolve the shadow cards and see how things go. I'm a little bit scared because the eye is in the same location as Frodo and Sam. Let's see how this pans out. So the bottom is going to be Umbar getting 1, so down here, and then deploying 3 Nazgul to the eye, which is certainly going to happen. So a brand new troop showing up down here. Mordor doesn't have any Nazgul to actually release at this point. So we're going to go to the largest group of Nazgul, which is going to be right here, and move them from there. They are most certainly tracking us down, so that's going to resolve this card. Let's go on to the next one, and here's hoping it doesn't involve a search, because that would be bad. So the next one off the top is going to be the bottom, so it says Nir Harad is going to get 1. That's going to be right here. I might have mispronounced that as well. That might have been Nur Harad. You can let me know in the comments down below whether I'm goofing that up. And then you can see a deployment of 3 Nazgul back to the eye yet again. This is nasty. So 2 will obviously come in from this location right here, but now there is 1, 2, 3, and they're all separate regions, so we can choose which one we want to bring in. So strategically, I plan to eventually head down this way, and so Gondor having one of them in there is maybe not the best, so we'll go ahead and bring this one up into this region. Now, it's certainly bad to have this many Nazgul in this area, because if we had to make a search roll right now, it would be absolutely brutal. So we really want to focus on getting Frodo and Sam out of that area. And you might have noticed that I didn't take any actions with Frodo and Sam the last couple of turns, kind of on purpose to draw those Nazgul into this area as much as possible before we try and get out of it. But that strategy is very risky and really depends on the shadow cards that you end up pulling from the top of the deck, as of course once the Nazgul are present in that area and a search has to be rolled, well, things get really tough. It's now time to move on to the next turn, so we're going to move this marker over to Gandalf. My original strategy with Gandalf was to head east to the havens that only have a single Free People's troop over there, like the Woodland Realm, for instance, and the Dwarven Realm over there, and basically be able to bolster it to try to prevent the Shadow troops from coming through Mirkwood and causing problems. But, as you can see, we have other problems with Frodo and Sam, as I mentioned, so we're going to try and get Gandalf using his Shadowfax ability, allowing him to move up to 2 locations at the same time, so long as he's not moving through a special pass. Special pass are the ones that look like this, with the icons that require additional resources or icons to get through, so we can't go through those using the Shadowfax, but we can go through regular movement. So he's going to go ahead and go 1 and then 2. That's going to be 2 movement for 1 action, then another one to here and another one right into the same space as Frodo and Sam. But just before he does that, he's going to stay where he is and recruit, because when he musters, he can add up to 2 troops to his location instead of 1. So the first action he's going to do is bring the last 2 elves into Rivendell. First action is complete. He has mustered and helped out Legolas in terms of building up an elven army. Now he's going to get on his way to help Frodo and Sam. 1 action gets him to move 2 locations to Dunland. And the other 2 actions get him in the same space as Frodo and Sam. And now, after spending 3 actions, he's got 1 more. He's going to go ahead and move, taking Frodo and Sam with him and heading north to get out of the region with the eye and all those Nazgul. And we're going to have to spend a stealth token to avoid a search roll. And in hindsight, we'll hold on to the token, and instead we'll use a stealth card, discarding this to allow us to move north. So Gandalf successfully is helping everybody, able to muster up some troops for Legolas and also able to get down to Frodo and Sam and get them out of harm's way. They're now just 1 space north, which puts them in a different region outside of the eye's gaze. Now Frodo and Sam can take an action, and they'll bring Gandalf along with them. They're going to spend one of the cards that have stealth on them to ensure that they don't get, draw any attention, have any search roll occur. But essentially, they're going to move from where they're at into a haven location. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to have the ability to get out into different regions away from the Nazgul. This is the card I'm discarding in order to make the move without doing the search roll. And now inside of Lorien, we're inside of a haven, and we're also able to take multiple paths out from here. That's going to wrap up that turn. Here are the cards that I already had left in hand. Here are the 2 I just drew up. So we got this one, which says select any character and shift the eye token to their region, then move any 3 Nazgul to that region. That can be very beneficial. We'll hold on to that for sure, of course. And then this one here will be nice as it gives us Valor, and we certainly need it. Now it's time to see whether our efforts to try and get Frodo and Sam out of the location with the eye marker was a good idea or not. Probably was. Let's see. From the bottom portion, Nirn is going to gain 1, and then it says move 2 Nazgul closer to Frodo. Select from those closest to him outside his region. If tied, the players choose. So Nirn is going to gain another troop. Now at this point, we're moving 2 Nazgul closer to Frodo, and we're choosing from all the closest to him outside his region. So the closest regions to where Frodo currently is, and this one of course doesn't count because it's already in the region, is this region here with 1 or this region here with a whole bunch. So I've gone ahead and brought in 2 from this region here, and now we have 3 inside the same region with Frodo and Sam. With that shadow card removed, 1 more to go. Let's see what we get. Bottom portion of the card, so Dunland is getting a +1 shadow troop, and then we're deploying 3 Nazgul from Mordor to the eye. They are absolutely on our case right now, so we're going to go ahead and add this 1 here to Dunland. We'll move this one just over here so we can place this unit right there. This is still inside the same region. And next we deploy 3 Nazgul from Mordor, but there isn't any, so if and when Mordor is empty, we deploy from the largest groups 1 at a time. So this actually works really good in combination with the last shadow card we got, because even though we had to put more Nazgul in the same space as Frodo and Sam, they're now being pulled away, as this card says, based on the largest groups 1 at a time. So the largest groups going into this area here, this region, is going to be from here. So 2 of them for sure coming from here. And now with 3 regions that have 1 each, which includes the one with Frodo and Sam, this one here and this one here, we can choose any of the 3 to go into this area. And just like that, we've resolved the second shadow card and luckily avoided any search rolls. That's going to wrap up another turn, and now we move the solo marker over to Merry and Pippin. Now what I'd love to do with Merry and Pippin is get over to Dale, that region up there in the top right, to be able to protect that haven the dwarves control. Now, just based on the paths that you can see presented, it's very tough to get Merry and Pippin there and still have enough for any kind of muster. If I was to go ahead from where I'm at and head up here, 1, 2, 3, and then 4, I wouldn't have enough for any muster there. If I went any other way around, I still wouldn't have enough. The only thing I could do is actually go through Woodland Realm and actually take that unit and move it over to the other haven to try to bolster it that way, as it's obvious the Shadow troops are headed to Dale. It's risky, but I'm going to travel for 3 actions. Getting to the Woodland Realm, we're going to take that 1 elven troop and move it over to Dale. This, of course, also provides some backup in the form of rerolls and valor tokens that can be spent if anything happens in this area. Now, Frodo over here, hard to see because there's a bunch of Nazgul flying around in front of him. He's currently at a haven right now, and I really don't have any reason to run away at this moment and travel any further, because my eventual plan, once we go ahead and capture this location here, is to get the troops that we need to this location here, which is within striking distance from where Frodo and Gandalf are currently sitting. So what we'll do is we'll sit tight there, and we're going to go ahead with Elrond's support. So once per turn when Frodo prepares, which he's going to do right now, if he's at a haven in the region named on the card, he can gain a friendship token. Now the question is, do I actually have the right region to be able to pull this off? I may not. So I'm looking through right now to see if any cards actually match the region, and unfortunately they do not. So I have 6 cards in hand, which means if I end my turn off by not doing anything with Frodo and Sam and I draw up, I'm going to be forced to use something from my hand or discard. Now I do an event card in my hand that I could use to get myself down under the 7 card limit, but I'd have to use it pretty much right now or after I draw the 2 cards. Now, I could absolutely go ahead and use that event card right now, but I really want to hold on to that later because it's very powerful for getting Nazgul off your back, and I don't want to just use it for the sake of using it. So I might actually discard a card from my hand going into this draw. But first, we get to draw our 2 cards. I'm going to choose not to do anything with Frodo and Sam for their 1 action. The 2 cards that I drew up are this here, a friendship icon and a stealth icon. To keep my hand limit under 7, I think getting rid of this one makes a lot of sense. We'll just flat out discard this, bringing my total hand size to 7. Now let's find out what shadow cards are coming our way, and we're still currently drawing 2, but I bet you that's going to change in the near future. All right, so the next one here is going to be the top section. It's an advancement, Dol Guldur to Helm's Deep. Now, I'm not going to lie, it's going to be pretty difficult to see lines inside that area right now with all the Nazgul flying around. For me, it's easy to see. For you guys on camera, much more difficult. But you can always reference the card itself as it shows the path right on it. So you can see exactly the path that it's going to take. Along that entire path on the game board, there is not a single shadow troop along there. So nothing is happening. Next up, another advancement, Isengard to Grey Havens. Now the Grey Havens are way up here, and you're following the pink line, which takes you all the way down through here, which is pretty insane. And you might be wondering, wait a minute, couldn't Frodo Sam have gone from the Shire along this path? Yes, you absolutely can. There is a cost to that, and there will be times during gameplay where that makes sense to escape that region in that way. But the other thing to remember is, if you get Frodo and Sam that far down in the early game state, you are going to have a lot of trouble keeping them out of danger with less regions to bounce between. So it is a point of strategy for sure, and it is quite a jump to go back so you can escape things, but you want to use that in very specific situations. So in this case, again, following the pink line back, we're going all the way here, and we're headed back to Isengard, which is actually a pretty crazy path. So it's going to stop here first. These guys are going to advance over here, so they're actually making a push on a haven, which is not good. We'll continue along the pink, moving back, looking for red shadow troops all the way to Isengard, and that's it. There's none more, but we have a battle to roll. So in this battle, there's no characters, and we're looking at the enemy shadow troops for how many white dice are going into the roll, which is going to be 2, and we're hoping the Gondor units can hold the fort, because if we lose this haven, that's going to be a hit of hope the first time during this game. Let's see what we get. So we are able to do it, and oh my gosh, were we lucky. As you can see, this one right here is going to have us removing 1 red shadow troop, so the troops were able to take out 1, and then if there was a Nazgul in this region, which absolutely could have been, but we pulled it out earlier, it would have nabbed the final 2 here, and this haven would have fallen and turned to a stronghold, which means we would have placed this here and lost 3 hope. But thankfully, because we got rid of the Nazgul out of this region, that's not going to happen. We're moving on to the next turn. Eowyn is excited for this one as we prepared with Valor in order to make sure we can capture Isengard. I'm going to go ahead right now and use a capture action. If I'm in a shadow stronghold with at least 1 free people's troop and no shadow troops present, we can spend 3 Valor to turn it into a haven. So I'm going to spend 2 of the Valor tokens that I've saved, as well as the 1 card that I have, and we are going to land a haven right on that stronghold. And as we have a haven in place and there are no shadow troops anywhere in Rohan, which is awesome, we are able to complete objective number 2. We'll take a look at that card in a second. Also, when you place a haven, you immediately gain 2 hope, but we can only go up 1 more space in the hope track. So we are currently maxed out. So both these statements are true, which I just went over. Then you've completed it. When completed, the current player can gain 1 resistance token from the supply. We'll certainly take that and we'll flip this over. With 2 objectives completed, our focus now goes to a 3rd challenge to complete before we can destroy the 1 ring. You can see here, this is what we need to do. We need to get to this location just outside of Mordor, and we need to have these troops in place, and then we can challenge Sauron at that point. That is going to be epic to pull off, and we're now going to be able to start pushing to get Frodo as close to Mordor while also trying to complete this so we can be ready to destroy the 1 ring. He needs to start making some big progress. Now at this point, we spent 1 action. We have 3 left to do. I'm going to go ahead and use a prepare action, discarding this one as we're in the Misty Mountains with Eowyn, so we can go ahead and discard this and gain 1 friendship token. With 2 actions left to spend on Eowyn as well as 1 on Frodo and Sam, what do we want to accomplish? Well, we're trying to get objective number 3, which is to get to here with 2 brown troops, 2 green troops, and 3 blue. The 3 blue can certainly come from once we get down to the Gondor area. We can even traverse from this area over here and recruit and come back. But green and brown are going to come from the upper regions. We can bring them right now, right here, and start to maybe meet where Gandalf is. Now to pull this off with a little bit of haste, we're going to go ahead and have Eowyn here spend an icon you can see on the special path going into Fangorn Forest. In order to do this, I have to spend that. So I need a stealth in order to do it. I've got 1 in hand here, so we're going to go ahead and use the Dale one, which I'm pretty sure I won't be doing any prepare on in the future. So we'll discard this, and we're going to move out of there. I'm going to leave, I think, This is the question. How many units should I bring along with me? Let's definitely leave one at least, maybe two. Now, what I'm noticing about Isengard is there's all arrows coming out of there, 3 colored ones pointing out, but nothing going in, which means there's no way enemy troops could ever come back and take it from us, so we could potentially leave with nothing there to defend it. Now, I've got one more action to spend, and I'm absolutely going to spend it to go up to the Haven where Frodo and Sam as well as Gandalf are. So all of them are sitting in the same haven at this point, which is awesome. We need one more green elf troop in order to have what we need for the brown and the green troops. We'll get the blue when we get down to Gondor, so then we can make our way down. But Legolas is going to have to catch up with that troop, bringing it along with him, and likely some others. Now, here's the question. Do we bother with the last action I have for Frodo and Sam this turn to try and traverse out of the haven, maybe head to Dol Guldur, or we can actually spend one of our friendship tokens here to take a long path all the way down to here. The question really becomes, do we want to play cat and mouse with the eye token for a little bit and kind of buy some more time? I certainly don't think it's a good idea to wait around too much. If we can progress faster, we might as well, because of course, once the threat rate starts going up, things will just get tougher. So let's go ahead and be crazy. We're going to spend the one card from hand here necessary, the friendship icon along the special route, which can be seen right back here. I'm pointing at it on the board. We're going to take that route all the way down this white line to here. Now I've chosen to bring one green troop and 2 brown troops to this new destination and left 2 brown troops back here in Lorien because I want to make sure that haven doesn't get taken over. There's a direct connection between it as well through Moria, and there's multiple ways that enemies can come through and get there, so I don't want to leave that wide open. And as we move to the destination location that doesn't have any shadow troops and there's no Nazgul in the region, we didn't have to spend any stealth token for Frodo and Sam to make this action happen. That's going to do it for this turn. We're moving on to drawing up 2 cards. We only have 3 in hand, and I've still been able to hold on to this Gaze into the Plantier, which is awesome. I should be able to use that in the future. And of course, we'd pull the Skies Darken card right now. So first off, we got ourselves a Resistance card we'll place off to the side, but this is going to be resolved right now, and that is going to pump up the Shadow. The threat rate is going up by 1, which means we're now resolving 3 Shadow cards every single time. The tension in the game is starting to increase. We now go up on the threat rate. If the eye is currently in Frodo's region, we're going to lose 2 hope, but that's not going to happen because we've been on the move quite successfully, but we're going to have the eye fixated on Frodo's location now. And making things even more tough, we're going to actually have an increase of reinforcements at the location where the third objective actually is going to take place. That is not good. Makes me partially regret leaving some of the troops back here, but now this means Legolas is going to have to walk through and really bring in the troops because we want to make sure whatever battle occurs or whatever ways I can mitigate these pile of shadow troops, that we have what we need in order to complete the third objective in that spot. Last but not least, the danger intensifies, so we're going to shuffle the discard pile here and place it back on top of the deck. That resolves the Skies Darken card, and now we're going to draw 3 shadow cards one at a time. Here comes the pain. First one off the top here is going to be top banner, so it's going to be top section. We've got some advancement occurring. So from Harad over here to Helm's Deep, we're going to be following the purple arrow all the way back. So the purple arrow goes back there, back to here, here. So this is going to actually transition up the arrow, and then following the purple arrow again, this 1 will come up here. No battles to resolve across the battle line. Let's continue on to the next card. This one's going to be on the top as well, another advancement. This time from Umbar to Helm's Deep. So we're going to take a look at the purple arrow going to Helm's Deep and following it back. We know we're going to hit this group right here, which is going to shift up to this position here. And then continuing down the arrows, this one here will go up to here, and this one here will come up. There's no battles to resolve on that battle line. Let's go to the next card in the deck, and we have another one headed to Helm's Deep. We have had multiple of these. Again, the top banner here. So this is going to be, yikes, this is going from here to Helm's Deep. So everything's moving yet again. Now this time there is a difference. It's going to be on the orange arrow rather than the purple one from the previous 2 we've already resolved. So this one here from Umbar going on the orange arrow to Helm's Deep, the orange arrow actually goes back this way to here, then to here. So this would actually move up to here, and then we'd have nothing in Umbar to move. That's it. So again, no battles to resolve across that battle line. So very fortunate stuff, but the South is absolutely making a massive push forward. And that's going to end off another turn, and we're going to transition things to Legolas. And that, my friends, wraps up part number 1 of The Lord of the Rings Fate of the Fellowship from Z-Man Games. I really hope you're enjoying the gameplay of this one, and stay tuned to the channel as we dive into the finale together to see whether the Fellowship can complete the 3rd objective and then the final one to destroy the One Ring, or will the shadow start to envelop us and our hope will begin to drop into despair. Thanks again for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about what you've seen so far, and as always, keep on rolling solo.